As a responsible person with growing concerns for your privacy and personal liberty, you want to know where we're headed and what you can do about it. We ask the experts what you need to do to take prudent and responsible action to safeguard your family's wealth and well-being, and what basic first steps will help you to be aware and prepared. ReluctantPreppers.com.
Welcome back, Reluctant Preppers. We have an important returning guest tonight, David Morgan, silver guru and well-recognized expert on the precious metals markets, has returned to give us his insight on Reluctant Preppers. David, thank you for joining us again.
Well, thank you so much for having me.
You have met with us a couple of times this year to tell us to watch out for penetration of a silver price resistance level of 1850. Today, silver punched through that level and just kept on going. Can you tell us, is this the breakout signal that you've been watching for? If so, what do you think is driving it? And also, why was it not defended more vigorously than it was?
Well, I just did an update for the website members, so I don't want to give that away for free because they pay me a pretty good premium to have my insights. I will say that that level is important, but there's also a resistance level above that. The main reason I think that it's taking place is what's going on the COMEX in the warehouses. And I've pointed that specifically to our members, but we're in a situation where we get to very rarely, and once we get to that level, I have always seen in the past a situation where you saw a move in the silver market. Now, we've had a good move 2 days in a row. I kind of wish we were doing this on Friday after the close rather than Thursday, because if that were the case, I would have a little more insights for you, because Fridays are usually the most important day on the commodities exchanges, and we're facing a 3-day weekend, which is even more critically important in the futures markets. Usually all the pros go flat over a 3-day weekend. They don't want to have any exposure to the market because of they usually flat on the weekends anyway. But with the 3 days holiday, they're extremely careful to be flat. So my suspicion is we may have seen it for a while. I don't know yet. I did, like I say, a much more in-depth update for my members.
And if you could look, you've talked in the past about not only the short physical inventory situations on the COMEX and physical demand, which would eventually outstrip the paper suppression of the prices. We've heard that from Bill Murphy. We've heard that from others. You've also talked in the past about the intrinsic, sort of the flight to quality that gold and silver represent. Could you give us your perspectives on the global political market, especially, or political dynamics, especially in the wake of the British vote to exit from the European Union last week? What you think that will be playing, what factor you think that will be playing in the precious metals markets going forward?
Overall, I think it could be summed up to say that there is a breakdown crisis in confidence, or better stated, perhaps a breakdown in trust. Who do you trust? You don't trust your government. You don't trust the banking elite. You don't trust the political class. You don't even trust the food chain. I mean, that's in the U.S. I think, most of Europe's exempt from GMOs, although that's even creeped in there. So when there's a breakdown in confidence, people go, and those that are aware of what's happening, go to what can be trusted. And of course, precious metals are the most trusted asset on a financial or monetary basis, bar none. At least it's been that way throughout history. So this is where, as trust leaves the system more and more, for a variety of reasons, there is more and more of a rush to find something that can be trusted. And an ounce of gold is the same mass anywhere in the universe, same with silver, and it's known to be of value almost universally. I mean, I know Chris Powell beats up this statement, but it's true. I mean, when you have a survival kit as a jet pilot, you get a gold coin. They don't give you a $100 bill. You give a $100 bill to somebody out in the jungle, if that's where you had to punch out, they're not going to know what the heck it is. It could care less. You show them a gold coin, they'll know what it is. So it's a universal, intrinsic, almost within the DNA of the human species to know that precious metals are valuable.
talking about preparedness and prepping, you've often checked in with us about the philosophy of leadership, the philosophy of resolute integrity, the philosophy of basically doing what you say you're going to do and not trespassing on others when you do it. As you look at the vote that's been happening of loss of trust in government institutions and the increase of interest in precious metals, does it bring any additional perspectives to you on what philosophy, what thoughts about purpose and about leadership and about integrity that individuals who are making preparedness steps need to keep in mind as they go forward?
Yes, I can take that lead or that cue. I put out on video. I might have done it on audio, or I might have actually written it. Sorry, I've been under a fair amount of pressure. But I made a statement based on Simon Black, the sovereign man, and I quoted him. I gave him credit, and I'm very good about that. I don't mind using others' work, but I want to give them credit. But he basically said, you don't need a piece of paper to tell you you're free. And I think that was a very pertinent and accurate and thought-provoking statement, because the vote was, frankly, I was a bit surprised. I'm happy, but it doesn't mean that much unless it's acted upon. Now, I know it meant a lot in the financial markets. I just finished the Morgan Report. It'll be published this weekend, and I had a fair amount to say about the Brexit and then cut it short because a lot is going to flow over the next several weeks and months, and I'll readdress it as things unravel or stabilize, depending on what takes place. But the idea that just a piece of paper is going to make you free is ridiculous. We're born that way. It's a human right. It's in the Constitution or the founding of the country. It was an inalienable right. It was a God-given right. It was something endowed by the Creator. And if you don't believe that there's a Creator, fine. If you think we came out of the primordial goo and we evolved and that's how we got here, that's fine. You still have rights just by being human. So I think that's the bigger takeaway. So you ask from kind of a philosophical perspective. It's more about being born free and acting free than voting yourself free. Not that it wasn't important. I'm not trying to downplay that. What I'm trying to say is if you vote yourself free and you still act like a slave, then are you really free? I mean, the biggest scam really that's been put over on humanity at large is to make them believe that they're free when they're really imprisoned. And as Julian Tennant, I think I pronounced her last name correctly. I really admire her. She was in the movie The Four Horsemen. Said, when you control the cognitive map, or a more simple way to say it is when you control the way people think, then you're the master. Because if you can make them believe that everything's hunky-dory, everything's free, we're in control, and everything's wonderful, anyone that's saying the economy isn't on solid ground is peddling fiction. When you have that kind of control, then you actually are the ruler, and people don't even know it. And that's the sad part.
Something you just said made me, you mentioned about how we need to act free and think free to really be free. One of the commenters on a recent video on our channel said, we're the only species on this planet that pays to live on this planet, and makes you start to look with new eyes at something we just get so numb to that we just take for granted. Of course, we have to pay these high property taxes, and we have to pay taxes anytime we generate any income. We have to pay taxes anytime someone passes away and they want to pass what they have on down to their heirs. So just to question that again and say, why do we have to pay just to be alive? And then circling back to what we started out with as far as the action on the silver market, in the past we've talked about over the last 5 years about how silver has been beaten down and held down and below the cost of production and below its inflation-adjusted value and on and on and on. Some people might feel reluctant to have entered into owning silver, but now they see that it's significantly off the lows that it put in fourth quarter of last year. Might feel, they lost the boat, they lost their chance. The value prices are now behind them, and it's too late to get in. In your view, with someone who takes a responsible long-term view, is there still brighter days ahead for silver, so they shouldn't be discouraged by the fact that it's no longer at those bargain basement prices that it was holding for a significant period of time late last year.
Well, really, the truth of the matter is, and how do you say truth, is the pros wait for the base and bottom to begin. I mean, to try to buy at the bottom is an amateur's game. That's what the public does. That is really not a proven technique if you want to really keep all of your money working as hard as possible. You really want to buy once the base has been built, and you come off that base. So actually now wouldn't be a bad time, although on a real short-term basis, I'm not super favorable at this point in time. But, what you want to do is set a mark, like, okay, I want to have all the silver. I need this much, this is my goal. This is what I can afford. This is the security that I wish to have. It represents this much of my net worth. And I want to be able to achieve that while silver is still under $20 or silver is under 25. I think once these markets go where they're going to go, I think anyone even bought at 30 will be very happy at the end of the day. But of course, we're not at 30. I understand that. But the best thing is basically to take a mature adult approach and just stack it. And that's what a lot of people, someone coined the word silver stacker, and it wasn't me. But it was a great frame of reference, a great metaphor. You just keep on buying, you keep on stacking your coins, and you just do it no matter what. And if you get on our website, themorganreport.com, and give us a name and an email address, I have a whole bunch of information for you in a riches and resources report. And one of those is an opportunity to stack silver, gold, platinum, palladium for that matter, and just keep stacking. In fact, it's got an affiliate program that you can actually get paid back in physical if you choose to do so. So it's a very good program. It's automatic. It takes about 10 minutes to set up. So that's one. But I want to come back full circle what you said about the previous and a previous interview, not the previous interview, but about, the only species that has to pay to live here. I looked at that in the last chapter of the Silver Manifesto, and I said beyond silver, and I had a lot more questions than I did answers. But even me, I question the whole monetary system. It's been, my life's work, my life's passion, a student of it. I still learn more, all the time. But, you really want to I've questioned that. The same type of question is like, can't we do better? First of all, we've got to get honest again. And the problem with regulation, if you boil it down, and we talked about it last time on your show, is, the two laws, and I won't go over them again, but you can't regulate honesty. Basically, everyone tell the truth, everyone obey their word, everyone be honest, in other words. Well, you got books out the kazoozo that basically are trying to regulate honesty, and it cannot be, because some people are and some people aren't. Doesn't matter what the law says or the regulation says. So that's a big problem. And as you get a decline in the monetary base, in other words, you get debasement of the currency, you also get a debasement of the amount of people that obey the rules.
One final question for you before we let you go. As more and more people become interested in physical precious metals, once they see beyond once they realize that they don't have trust and faith in this debt-based system that we've all become accustomed to accepting as the only option, we realize it's not the only option. There's something much more high integrity and real that's available. If the physical demand does drive prices significantly higher than we've seen recently, and people who've accumulated or done stacking want to rebalance or shift some of their worth out of precious metals into something else that's productive and real, do you have any strategies around that you've either thought of yourself or that you've talked about with other people on at what point do you do some kind of a asset swap for something else, and what should people be thinking along in those terms?
Well, I actually got that question from one of our members, and I addressed it in this month's report that will be out over the weekend. And I don't want anyone to buy it because I addressed it in a meaningful way, but and gave lots of ideas. But the real thing is, depending on the person, is if you want to follow my lead, you could consider a subscription, because I'll be looking at that in real time. Now, where is that going to happen? No one knows the future, including yours truly. I think we're probably off into the 2018 timeframe. But you certainly want to be prepared mentally. One of my favorite sayings, as you know, is chance favors the prepared mind. So if you are prepared that when silver reaches X amount and relative to what what amount of silver buys a house, or what amount of silver buys a Dow Jones Industrial Average, or what silver buys this business that you're interested in owning, or this restaurant, or whatever. That's your parameter, and you know it's undervalued now. So you know when silver becomes fair value to overvalued, you want to shoot for that overvalued relationship between silver and that house, that land, that restaurant, that business, and that's where you start to make your move. So certainly that is the way to approach it. As far as putting a dollar price on it, certainly that can be done, but in the paper paradigm and the breakdown crisis that will probably ensue, that may be a meaningless number.
Right, because you're comparing to a shrinking yardstick that's no longer a valid comparison. That's why it makes so much more sense to talk about comparisons to real things, as you mentioned. Well, David, you always open up our thought process. You always bring a depth of maturity and wisdom to it, and not just talking about the mechanics of what's going on, but the meaning behind it. So we just are so grateful that you're willing to continue to be on our corner here and to give us your insights here on Reluctant Preppers. Thank you so much, David, for joining us.
My pleasure. And don't forget to go to the website, themorganreport.com, and get that free report. It's well worth it, and it costs you nothing more than a couple minutes to log in.
Perfect. Thank you, David.
You're welcome.